It's now 8:32 WTRE on this Tuesday morning. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kath. Sorry.
There you go.
Good morning. How are you?
Cassandra, is that my new name,
Yeah,
Cassandra?
Cassandra. I
All
like
right,
that.
there we go. I'll take it. You've got a guest joining us this morning.
Good morning, Kim. Are you there?
I am, Chris. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing okay myself.
All right. I want to introduce Kim Dodson. She's the executive director of the Arc of Indiana. You've been the director since 2015, if I'm correct, right?
That is correct.
And then you've been with the Arc since 1998?
Yeah, 26 years.
The stuff you've seen. I mean, just the traction we've taken here in the state of Indiana. I'm sure you've seen a lot.
You know, we really have. And I think Indiana has been a model of a state that has done things right. So I'm blessed to have been part of this organization, for a couple of decades. And we still have a long way to go, but we've certainly made a big difference over the last couple decades.
Absolutely. So one of the things we've been doing here at WTRE and here in Greensburg, we've been celebrating March Disability Awareness Month. We've had the local ARC chapter. We've had individuals come on and doing some debunking of some myths for individuals with disabilities finding employment. We've highlighted a couple individuals. We've done it right here. One of the things we wanted to do is we kind of wanted to finish up the month with a bang. So we wanted to invite someone just like you, someone that has the experience and kind of has their hands on the pulse in the state of Indiana of what's going on.
Wow, that's a loaded question, right? One, thank you, and thank you for giving attention to Disability Awareness Month. It's something that we're really proud of, and I think really does, take an opportunity to spotlight what people with disabilities can do, instead of just focusing on what people perceive that they can't do. So thank you for helping that. I think right now all eyes are on Washington D.C. and the State House. And all eyes are specifically on Medicaid, and we don't know where, policyholders will go with Medicaid. A lot of lawmakers think Medicaid is a program that you dump a lot of money into and you don't necessarily get a lot out of it. And that's absolutely not true. Medicaid is the program that really does provide services and supports for people with disabilities to live a good life. And that looks different for everyone. But I think it does give them the opportunity to live independently, to learn skills to live independently, to learn skills to get a job, to have access to a job coach to keep a job, and then just allows them to get access to some supports that might help them with some of their activities of daily living, that without them, quite honestly, could lead them to going into a nursing home, and we don't want that. Not only is it more costly in the state of Indiana, but it's also leads to a lower quality of life, and it's not what people want. And so Medicaid is a really important program that I think people really need to be paying attention to, because especially in Indiana, our lawmakers are part-time lawmakers. So they have a life outside of the state house where they are making laws. So many of them are not experts in Medicaid, and nor should they have to be. But I think that's where people with disabilities, their families, the people who provide them services, their therapist, everybody needs to get involved in telling their story about what does Medicaid mean to them. And, for Disability Awareness Month, the Arc of Indiana's theme is It's Your Story. And we really want people to feel empowered to embrace, their life and to engage with legislators about telling their story not only about how they utilize Medicaid, but what are their goals? What do they want to do in life? When you talk to people with disabilities, so many of them want to give back, right? They want a job where they can, pay taxes and put back into a system that they know that they utilize, and they want it to be there for them to continue to get services and for their friends to get services. And I think that's the story we really need to be telling to lawmakers. Because, if they think Medicaid is just this black hole gobbling up all of this money, we need to tell the story of what all it really is and what all it really can do and the impact it has. Because quite honestly, without Medicaid, so many people with disabilities would not be able to live their good life. They would be in a nursing facility. Indiana made a decision in the late 90s and finished it in the early 2000s about closing its state-run institutions. We're one of the few states in the country who has done that. So if you think about that for just a moment, it means that our DC delegation, so our 9 House members and our 2 senators, are very much in the minority when they go to Washington, D.C., and they start talking about Medicaid and home and community-based services. For our lawmakers, it's the only thing that they know, because Indiana has moved in the right direction. They've moved away from those big warehouses where lives are maintained and not valued. For all of those other lawmakers, institutions are normal. Institutions are just a way of life. And that's a big deal, because I think we've got to equip our lawmakers to what does it really mean to invest in home and community-based services? What does it mean to invest in Medicaid? What good does it do for people in the state? And again, it's less costly than institutions. So again, not only just a higher quality of life, but it's less costly as well. And we have to put faces to the dollar signs. We can't let lawmakers just think of Medicaid as money. It is people's lives. And we need people to share their stories and get engaged, because it's those voices that have the power. And we need to embrace that power.
I agree 100%. And I will say we have some wonderful lawmakers in our area here that do understand what disabilities are. And, we have Jenny Meltzer has been very awesome with this. She helped get, I believe it was the state of Indiana, to do a proclamation for the month. So she went above and beyond, and we can always count on her for those things. And also here in Greensburg, our Mayor Josh Marsh, he did a proclamation for March Disability Awareness Month, which was great. Thankfully, as a community, I feel like we can always count on our different individuals to always be there for our individuals. One of the things, Kim, you were talking about some of the stuff that and can you tell us kind of what the ARC is and what the ARC does, and if we have questions, or if I am a family with a child with a disability, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ARC of Indiana is a statewide not-for-profit organization that advocates for the issues important to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. What that means is we want to walk right alongside families and people with disabilities as they navigate life. We are here from prenatal care all the way to end of life. So whatever the issue is, we are here to help you navigate those. Government services are complicated. And so we have a team of individuals that are dedicated to answering the phone each and every day, and helping people, whether it is, I just got a diagnosis for my son, what do I do next? I'm having trouble receiving services through my school. How can you help? To my child's getting ready to graduate from high school. How do I help them get a job? How do I sign up for Medicaid? And we don't stop just at state issues. We are absolutely involved in federal issues as well. So if you have troubles with Social Security, we can help with all of those things. We have a team of people who, not just answer the phones each and every day, but are actively looking for grants to do more. We're always looking for ways to create opportunities for people with disabilities to live their best life. And so we have a strong program team that is running grants, and also just talking to people about what do they want in their life, so that we can build more resources, whether that's more information on our website, putting up more frequently asked questions about programs, and or again really getting a grant for us to do growth in an area. We also have a very strong presence at the Indiana State House. That's kind of my first love. When I started with the ARC in 1998, I was the Director of Government Affairs, and it's really what I love and know. I'd like to say, every once in a while I think about, pushing away from that and, not frustrating myself so much during the legislative session, but it's too much a part of who I am. And so I really do love that aspect. We do have a a very strong presence at the State House, and we get involved at the federal level as well. The ARC of the United States has a big lobbying team, but we absolutely get brought into conversations with members of our DC delegation, if they're on a committee, if they're on a bill, if we know that they care about the issue, we are absolutely engaged on those things. The biggest thing, if people want to, if they have a question, if they have somebody in their life with a disability and they just need to talk to somebody, reaching out to us by calling us or emailing us. We get about 20,000 phone calls a year from people just trying to navigate life. And we take a great deal of pride in the way that we handle those phone calls. I believe that every phone call should be answered with a warm voice, full of compassion and understanding. And the people who answer our phones are people who, are either people with disabilities or family members themselves. So they have walked in those shoes. And so they have a great deal of understanding and empathy of what people are going through. And again, our goal is to help people create opportunities, help people, again, have the best life possible. And we're here to help and be a resource in any way that we are asked to.
So, Kim, when you talk about the legislature, is this one of the toughest sessions you've seen in a long time in the years you've been there?
It really is. It's every session is interesting. But this session is particularly interesting because we have a brand new administration, and with every new administration, you have to spend some time getting to know, who's all in these, the important offices that you deal with. So you have to build those relationships. We were quite honestly very lucky that Mitch Robe was retasked with being FSSA secretary. So he was FSSA secretary under Governor Daniels in the early 2000s. He's back for his second run as FSSA secretary. And it's really nice to have somebody in that role that, one, we know, and we know that we can work with, but you don't have to start from scratch on building a relationship, because again, this is a difficult session because we are talking so much about Medicaid. It's also, we're coming out of a year where we had a nearly $1 billion shortfall in Medicaid. So all eyes are on Medicaid and really scrutinizing every penny that is put into that program. We're hearing all of the right things where people are saying it's not our intent to do anything harmful to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but they're moving really fast. And so I'm always worried about the unintended consequences of, yes, it might not be your intent, but as you're making all these changes, can we have an opportunity to slow down and really think through the impact of the changes you're making? And, are we going too far in some areas and maybe not so far in other areas? We're hearing a lot about fraud, abuse, and neglect in the Medicaid world. And certainly, yes, I think there is some of that. Is there enough of that to, meet some of the budgetary goals that they're trying to? No, I don't think so. But I think we all have to work together. And so I think as long as lawmakers want to work together with advocates, we'll end up in a decent place. But it is an interesting session. It's weird when we're so fortunate to be in Indiana where we have such a large surplus, right? And some of us would say, making that surplus was hard because we really saw the loss of some programs that kind of helped that surplus, take effect. But we, as a state, lawmakers are still talking about not having any money. So we are a very strong, financially sound state with a very large surplus, but yet lawmakers think we don't have enough money. And that can get really frustrating as advocates when you hear about the, nearly 20,000 people on the Medicaid waiver waiting list. People aren't getting all the services and supports they need. And you see this big pot of money of nearly, $2 billion sitting over there in the surplus, and the state says it has no money. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it is just a difficult time because you have to, again, build relationships with new people, educate them about Medicaid, change their mind about what they think people with disabilities are capable of, which usually is not a high bar, and really have to prove to them that people with disabilities are just like everybody else and have the same goals and dreams. We just have to give them maybe a little bit of support to get there, but then they can be active members of our society as well, and contributing members to our tax base. And it just takes a lot of education, which again comes back to people really just needing to tell their stories.
One of the things, I'm going to kind of switch gears here, because there's something exciting Indiana has that the ARC founded, and I'd like to give you a little plug for this. It's Erskine Green Training Institute over in Muncie. I have been over there, and it is absolutely amazing, and I just don't know if a lot of people know very much about it. So I would like you to kind of explain what that is and kind of why that came about.
Yeah, well, thanks for putting a smile on my face this morning. I love talking about Erskine Green. It was, it is a place where people with disabilities can go to focus on learning some job training skills in the areas of hospitality, food services, and healthcare. Quite honestly, it came from, I was over at the State House one day in 2011. So that was a while ago. And talking to the legislature about needing to invest more money to help people with disabilities get access to employment. And we had just a very raw conversation about what more needed to be done. And it was the legislature who challenged the ARC of Indiana to do better. And they said, you guys need to come up with a model of how people with disabilities can get the job skills that they need to really find employment and a career. And so I took that challenge and came back to the ARC, and we started looking at what was happening in other states, and looked quite honestly around the country and the world as to what was doing. And we brought together what we called 20 of the best minds in disability services, and just kind of talked about what we knew, what we saw as success, what we saw that wasn't working. And we learned a lot about how people with disabilities do best when they are immersed in the learning environment. So we had this wild, crazy idea to get into the hospitality area and create a college-like experience for people with disabilities. Because in 2011, 2015, we didn't have as many job programs as what we have right now. And so we were a very unique model in having people live at a hotel and really be immersed in that hotel environment while they were learning to work in that hotel environment. And the same with the restaurant, because we had a restaurant right there on site at the hotel. And it really made a difference, because what we saw from other states is that they were training people with disabilities how to work the front desk when the front desk wasn't busy. And so when I talked to the people with disabilities who were employed in those jobs about why they left that career, or why they didn't last long in that job, the biggest thing they said was, I wasn't trained right. I wasn't trained to, monitor us and to be flexible in the way I was doing things. When I was trained, it was nice and quiet. There was nobody around, so I could focus on what I was doing. Well, for all of us who have ever been to a hotel, hotels are rarely quiet, right? There's usually a lot of people hustling and bustling, people who are in a hurry to check in, check out, whatever it is. And so we really felt like that immersive model was the right way to do it. And I think we're on to something. We've had over 350 graduates. Over 80% of our graduates are employed in the program that they went through. And the most fascinating and wonderful thing is more than 80% are still employed after 18 months of graduation. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. We wanted to see that sustainability of people staying in the work trade that they went through. And, people, again, are living really good lives. We have had people get jobs and move off of government services altogether. We've had people who have moved to Muncie, where the Training Institute is, because they got so comfortable with working at the hotel, the hospital, or the restaurant that they wanted to move right there. And we've just been really blessed to be able to impact so many lives from all across the state. And we're just getting started. Even though we're celebrating our 10th year this year, we still have a lot of ideas, and we still are doing some really good things. And I think our model works. And so we would love to continue to do more. And we need to move into some other areas of industries, though.
Well, I would love to be the 21st mind of the meeting there that you had. So, it's great. It's great to be part of the state of Indiana. We hear a lot of things on TV. We hear a lot of things all over Facebook, all of those things. But Indiana is very progressive when it comes to ensuring that our individuals with disabilities have a voice. And I think the main goal is not to focus on the dis part of it, but to focus on the ability. I grew up with a sister with a disability, and I started advocating for her when I was 10 years old. So it's part of me, and I see a lot more individuals. And I also believe that we're seeing, and I know I sound like an old man when I say this, but I feel like we're seeing more of a generational change as well. I feel like those that are of the newer generation, not that my generation is not accepting of people with disabilities, but I feel like the further along we get, the more educated we become. And like my daughter, she hangs out, like it's just a great thing to see the inclusivity that I'm seeing here at the community schools here in Greensburg and continue to build on.
Absolutely. And again, that's what we've been striving for, right? For decades, is just, having a sense of community where everybody belongs and nobody doesn't have an opportunity. And, it sounds like you and your sister are lucky to have each other, because you learn from each other. And I think with the inclusive, school environment that most schools have created, again, the investment in home and community-based services. So it's very normal, and it's just very, just you see people with disabilities out and about doing the same things that people without disabilities are doing. That's what our goal has always been, is, focusing on the ways that we're all alike rather than on the ways we're different. And with that, I think we can build a better sense of community and a sense of life. And I think that's better for all of us that's involved.
Well, Kim, I appreciate it. We're getting closer to the 9 o'clock hour, and I just want to appreciate you coming on, and thank you for coming on this morning and just talking about the ARC and all of the things Indiana's doing. Please keep in contact with me, and we'd love to continue.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So, Kim, how did you get involved?
It was by accident, and it's a really long story that I know we don't have, but, again, my whole background has been in public policy. And so I just happened to be in the right place at the right time in 1998 and stumbled upon the ARC. And at the time, I didn't have any connection to people with disabilities. But my daughter, when she was born in 2001, she does have an intellectual disability and some learning disabilities. And so I feel very, very blessed that I was in the right place at the right time and got led to the ARC of Indiana, and has been able to be with this organization for 26 years. And again, we're just getting started. There's still a lot more to do. And thankfully for the state of Indiana, we've come a long way, but we also have a lot of dreams that we still want to reach.
Well, it sounds like you're moving forward with them.
I hope so.
All right. Chris, anything else?
No, that's all I've got. And Kim's got some big shoes to fill. She's, John Dickerson. How long was John?
Yes. So, yeah, he was around for 35, 40 years.
That's what I thought.
You're exactly right. Big shoes to fill. I love that man. He is the reason I came to the ARC, and I learn a lot from him. He is a wonderful friend and mentor. And again, part of the reason why Indiana is as good as it is because he committed his time and skills to making Indiana a better place. And we're fortunate for his service as well.
And if he was on here, he would make a horrible dad joke about his big shoes. So,
yes,
but anyway, Kim, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good day, and I look forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Thank you for having me. Thanks again for putting so much attention on Disability Awareness Month. You guys are great, and you guys have a great day as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Chris. Wow. I tell you, it's interesting.
Yes.
And I'd heard about you mentioned the Erskine Green, because I'd heard we had I can't remember how long ago it was, some in studio guest
Yep.
that had talked about it. I believe somebody that even was looking